Thank you, Chairman. We'll proceed with 5-minute rounds of questionings, and I'd like to start with Ms. Hovland. Commissioner Hovland, according to the FY 2015 annual report to Congress on outcome evaluations of administration for Native American programs, 67% of projects visited met or exceeded their effectiveness expectations. In addition, 79% had a positive or significant positive impact on the grantee's community. So that's good. For projects on which the ANA cannot conduct a site visit or that cannot meet the effectiveness expectations, how are you refining your process to ensure that the grantees are making progress? So good stats, but for those that aren't in the good stat column, what do you do?
All right. Thank you, Chairman. That's an excellent question. So at ANA, we want to be part of the success that happens with our project. So we offer, at no cost, technical assistance throughout the life of the grant. We also have a project specialist who is assigned to each of the grants that we have that they can reach at any time. Again, if we need to come in and offer technical assistance or training, we offer to do that. But the majority of our funds meet at least, or projects meet at least the minimum, if not exceed the outcomes that they projected.
How about, for example, economic development projects? Do you track jobs? You know, what kind of things do you track then to get an assessment of the impact?
So, thank you, Chairman. We do track jobs, and I was able to report that we look back on those 5 years in the fiscal years 2011 through 15 and mention how many natives were employed. But we do have like an evaluation team that can go through and pull data and get specifics. So, yes, we do. We can find that information.
Okay, and then are there improvements to the legislation to NAPA that you would like to see from Congress? Are there things that would help?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, there are a few items that we've looked at that we think would be beneficial. One is NAPA requires that whenever ANA makes any administrative or programmatic changes, even if it's minor, that we give public notice. So in order to comply, we issue a notice of public comment through the Federal Register, which typically, as you know, is a 3 to 4 month process, and it delays our issuing of funding opportunities. I've heard since I've been here since June that our applicants really want that 90-day window to be able to apply for the grants and have a good application to put forth. When we have to issue the public comment, it delays the funding opportunities from being published, and then we typically have to narrow the window that we're able to keep the applications open to either 60 days and sometimes down to 45 days. We do feel there already is a mechanism in place for tribes and Pacific Islanders to provide their comment whenever we make changes through our annual consultation. So that is one of the areas. And also, NAPA has language where it asks us at ANA to provide the outcomes or the impact. And ANA, we fund grants with a definitive beginning and end. Typically, they're three-year grants, so we have no way to go back in and evaluate the impact once the grant has sunset and has ended. So we are able to measure the outcomes throughout the process of the grant and at the end of the grant. So we'd like to see that change from impact to outcomes, which we're able to measure, and we are measuring. And then last is under NAPA, it asks for native language grantees that want to give their resources that they develop with their grants. They can share it with ANA if they choose to, and we can store it and digitize it and catalog it and make it available to the public if the grantee agrees to. We've been able to, through the years, store that in-house, but now with several more grantees, we're getting to a point where we're going to need to partner, and we'd like to look at the possibility of doing this maybe with NMAI, the National Museum for American Indians, visit with them to see if we could utilize their facility and be able to store and digitize and catalog the materials that we have. It'd be more accessible to the tribes when they come to Washington, D.C., and so that's the third area that we've looked at that would be beneficial.
Councilman, thank you. Councilman Socobasin, your part of the country is famous for maple syrup, and so I was intrigued when you were talking about that, and I can see why it'd be a tremendous business enterprise. How do you go about harvesting from the trees and so forth? You used to see in the movie or in a cartoon where they'd pound a nail in the tree and hang a bucket on it to get the sap, and I'm sure it's more sophisticated than that. How does that whole process work now? Just give us some sense of the scope of that business, like people employed and revenues and stuff. I mean, obviously because you're very famous for maple syrup.
So we've moved past the days of hanging a bucket from the tree, and the taps we use.
Now, Tester does that in Montana still, just so you know. He's a farmer, and that's how he does it.
On Caraganis.
We have a collection system now so that you don't have to go out and empty each bucket. There are lines that are hooked to each of the taps. We have, this year, we'll have about 15,000 taps, so that would be a lot of buckets to empty, and it would take a lot of time. But with the equipment we have in place now, along with a vacuum, which creates constant pressure so that you maximize the flow throughout the day. When the sun hits the trees, the sap starts to flow. As it sets, it slows down or stops. And that goes into a collection system. We have 2 tanks, 10,000 gallons each. From that point, goes into a reverse osmosis machine. So when the sap comes out, it takes about 40 gallons of sap to make one gallon of syrup. When we put it through the reverse osmosis machine, that ratio is about 8 to 1. So that our processing time is greatly decreased because of that. Goes into the evaporator at that point and becomes syrup. We throw it into barrels, haul it into town to our bottling facility. But our project has created 6 jobs, and that's the bottling side and also in the field, but directly. But it's also created opportunity within our forestry program, because each of these areas that we tap have to be prepared. And so our forestry department hires guys to come in and clear these areas, leaving nothing behind but usually white birch and maple trees. So, and that typically could be 8 to 10 guys when the weather is typically through the spring, summer is when they're prepping our next areas that we tap.
And can you tap a tree every year, or does it have to?
You can
rest.
You can. So one of the things we're organically certified, and in order to have that, you have to. The tree has to be a certain size, and then you have to move down 8 inches and over 8 inches the following year. So you can tap the trees from year to year. You just have to constantly move your tap.
Okay. Thank you. Vice Chairman Udall. I know you knew all that, but I thought it was kind of interesting.
I thought it was fascinating, too, and the success on these A&A grants is very impressive. Earlier this month, this committee convened a listening session to hear more about the Indian country's priorities for native language revitalization, and a lot of folks mentioned the need to develop pathways for more teachers and community members to get involved. Governor Vallo, I understand that Acoma used part of its A&A grant to support a Carey's Language Summer Institute, which offered training opportunities for both teachers and community members. Why did Acoma feel it was important to offer opportunities to all community members, not just language teachers, when designing the institute?
Thank you for the question, Vice Chairman. The Institute was designed to expand the opportunities for teaching and learning. And this is all in alignment with this ongoing development of our language program. Initially, I must say that the intent was to train teachers who would work in the classroom setting within the community school and also the public school systems. But what we learned is that because there was such a great interest by community members and families, that the training would be extended to include our own community members. And we see that today, that those individuals who are trained using the same training programs and curriculum developed by our language retention program staff, that information is now used in the home. It is used within family setting or extended family settings, while also being implemented in our local school systems. So the intent has expanded beyond the formal training which was identified in the very early years for teachers in the school systems only. So we're really grateful that there has been an expressed interest by the community to obtain this training, and we see that there is a much greater impact then on who the beneficiaries are, which are our children and other tribal members, but also this interest by the community to be teachers and stewards of the language.
Great. Thank you very much for that answer. Chairman James, you mentioned the reintroduction. Yes, sir.
Mr. Vice Chairman, if I may I ask to be allowed to have Ms. Tiana Williams-Clausen, our Yurok's lead wildlife biologist, accompany me at the table in case there are questions about the condor program I may not be able to ask.
That would be great. Ask Tiana Williams-Clausen to come forward, and that young baby you hear cooing back there is her baby Morgan, who traveled all the way across the country from California, and I understand made a very good trip. And she's been very good here today. So I'm going to actually ask about the condor, so glad to have you both here. The reintroduction of the California condor is really a remarkable story of species recovery made possible by cooperation among federal agencies, the state of California, and an extensive network of nonprofit organizations to share research, expertise, and resources. The tribe also deserves to be recognized for its efforts in developing tribal capacity to undertake projects of this magnitude by hiring and training tribal members for key positions. I understand that your tribal biologist, who we've just introduced, is here, and we appreciate you being here and the remarkable job you've done on this recovery of the condor. How has the Yurok tribe leveraged the ANA grant to complement these condor recovery efforts? What resources void has the ANA grant filled that contributed to its success?
Thank you, Vice Chair. The Yurok tribe has utilized a number of grants that we do back home at the tribe. Leveraging is what we do with the grants that we receive, but specifically regarding the ANA, as Ms. Clausen is the point of contact. So I'd like to share the hard work that she has started on behalf of the tribe back in 2010, and she can highlight the importance of how hard that she has worked with the tribes in leveraging these ANA grant funds.
That would be great. Tiana, please proceed.
Sure. Again, I'm Tiana Williams-Clausen. I'm a lead biologist with the Yurok tribe and a Yurok tribal member from the village of Huechqual, and I'm very happy to share my experience with you all. The ANA opportunity fits into a rather complicated and large set of grants and funding opportunities, from the Tribal Wildlife Grant to Bureau of Indian Affairs fundings. We've received task agreements from our local partner, Redwood National Park, to conduct some of the research that we need to do. But in particular for this ANA, which runs from 2019 to 2021, we're receiving support from local utility company Pacific. What is PG&E? What does PG&E stand for? I'm completely blanking. Pacific Gas and Electric. I completely apologize there. We always say PG&E, and then those acronyms get stuck in your head. They're actually providing for creating the release facility itself. Redwood National Park is providing a huge in-kind match by allowing us to use one of their buildings to create our operations center, where all of our staff will be based. Our own TARO program, the Tribal Employee Rights Office, is providing staff training to Yurok members to renovate that building. So not only are we creating the new building, but we're also creating new capacity amongst our tribal members. Members of the California Condor Recovery Program are offering us trainings like the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Pinnacles National Park, LA Zoo, the Oregon Zoo. We just got back from a training in Portland as well. All of this coming together, the Ventana Wildlife Society, to give us the capacity and training to be able to actually implement, hopefully within the next year, condor releases.
Well, thank you very much. And it's really, as I said, a remarkable story of recovery. Senator Tester.
Thank you, Vice Chair Udall. I want to touch back on the maple syrup stuff for a second here. What's the name of your website?
PassamaquoddyMaple.com.
Do you ship to Montana?
We do. We do, and if you order enough, there's no shipping cost.
No kidding. I like that. Free shipping on bulk orders. I like that. Commissioner Hovland, I want to thank you for being here today. There's no doubt that this has been an effective program from Indian country. Whether we're talking healthcare, language, once the money gets on the ground, you've been able to make a real difference in economic development. In talking to tribes, though, I find that this application process can be kind of difficult. My question is, if you had a chance to review the application process, do you agree with that? And what can be done to simplify it?
Thank you, Senator. And I have heard that through the years also. The ANA is a fantastic program, but it does have a difficult application process. Prior to my arrival in June, earlier in 2008, the ANA staff had looked at the application process and provided more tools in it to help it be a little bit more user-friendly. So in the funding opportunities, which, by the way, are open right now until April 15th, there are examples in there that are helpful, as well as a framework. So that's one way of addressing the process. And also the staff, prior to my arrival, developed a pre-application online toolkit, which also includes a not the framework, but the template. Sorry about that, template and additional examples. So helping to make it a little bit more user-friendly. I have asked and formed an internal work group to review the application line by line thoroughly to see if there are things that we can do to streamline it, make it more user-friendly. I traveled to Minneapolis a few weeks ago to one of ANA's pre-application trainings and heard from many of the grant writers that came to that training, got a lot of comments, a lot of good input. So we're going to bring those comments back to our work group and continue to work to see if we can make it a little bit easier and streamline it.
Well, I appreciate that. The goal is to increase economic opportunity out there, and I don't think there's much of an argument here. The tribes that could use it the most are the tribes that are the poorest, and consequently the tribes that are the poorest probably don't have grant writers. And so I appreciate you taking a look at this to make sure that you make it as user-friendly as possible.
Absolutely.
Do you have at your fingertips what the budget was last year for this program?
Yes, Senator. It was $54.5 million, and that was a $500,000 increase. And we thank you and Congress for the increase.
We haven't got the President's budget yet, but I'm sure you've been working on it. What are you going to ask for this year?
I'm not able to comment on that until it's published.
Come on, you can let us know. Slip it out. We won't tell anybody. Well, look, your program is a good program.
It is.
And we like results. Mm-hmm. It appears you get results.
Absolutely.
I don't know if I can name another program in Indian country that gets results, just to be honest with you. And so I hope that you fight for what you need, okay?
Absolutely, thank you.
I also understand that you're leading an effort on the Intra-Departmental Council for Native American Affairs at the Department of Health and Human Services and intend to make that council more active. Is that fairly accurate? Okay.
Yes, Senator,
Good.
Absolutely.
Well, I applaud your efforts. Communications is the key if we're going to tackle big issues. One of those big issues is missing and murdered Indigenous women.
Yes.
The committee held a hearing on it at the request of myself and other members here. And it was an interesting hearing because it wasn't one of those ones where you were smiling when you walked out of the room. It's a problem, and it's a problem that is a crisis. Is this something that you intend to have the council look at in the upcoming year?
Thank you, Senator, for your interest in this very important topic. The Interdepartmental Council on Native American Affairs, or ICNA, would be the vehicle for us to look at murdered and missing Indigenous, because it is so important, like he said, that we're talking with one another within HHS and not in silos. And probably, I'm sure what you've discovered through your listening sessions and conversations is that when we're dealing with murdered and missing Indigenous women, we also need to look at human trafficking, the opioid and substance abuse epidemic, and how they cross-tie. And so that's where ICNA is very important. That was, as we're addressing one issue, we're addressing all of them. So yes, it is something that we will be discussing.
Okay. So to be a little more clear, because I think it's an issue that I hear about a lot. Mm-hmm. It's an issue that we hear a lot about here too. And by the way, it's one of those issues it was probably still there. We certainly didn't hear much about it 5 or 10 years ago. We're hearing about it now. And so I gather from your question that you will be utilizing the council to do something positive in that realm?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Do you see anything else that Health and Human Services could do when it comes to missing and murdered Indigenous women over and above that council?
That's an excellent question. So as you heard the examples of today of just how flexible our funding is, especially under the social and economic development strategy, under that grant, this is a project that our Native communities could put together to address, to develop codes, however they choose to address it. So really, it's a grant that could be written under our SEDS program.
Okay. Do you need anything from us in this realm?
Pardon me?
Do you need anything from us when it comes to this realm, missing and murdered Indigenous women?
You know, I appreciate your bringing attention to this and having listening sessions, and I'd be happy to meet with you or your staff to talk about ways that we can address it.
Okay. Well, I do think one of your fortes is communication, and I think, as I said earlier in my comments, communication is how you solve a lot of problems in government, with marriages, you name it. And I just really think that we've got a lot of work to do, and the more folks who can throw in their skill sets to help solve this problem, the better chance we've got of solving it. And I mean, not only at the federal level, not only your office, but also at the tribal council level, FBI, U.S. Marshal, tribal law enforcement, you name it. So thank you all for being here. I appreciate it very much, and I look forward to having some Maine maple syrup on my pancakes soon.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you so much, Senator Tester. Senator Catherine Cortez Masto.
Thank you. I also want to thank all of you for being here. So appreciate the comments today. And I want to echo Senator Tester's comments with respect to missing and murdered Indigenous women and the fight and everything that we need to do to address this issue. So, no, it's a priority for me. But I also know, Commissioner Hovland, in your introduction today, you also talked about combating the crisis of human trafficking. So thank you. As you may know, last Congress, along with some of my colleagues here, I introduced End Trafficking of Native Americans Act. We're going to reintroduce it again this Congress to bring awareness and resources to combating this horrific crime of human trafficking in Indian country. So look forward to working with you with respect to that issue as well. So thank you. There is something else I do want to jump back to, and this idea of the grants that go out. It's an incredible program. I think it's fantastic, but we need to make sure that more Native Americans in Indian country across the United States have access to these grants. And my concern is just what I had heard earlier, is sometimes it's challenging to even apply for these grants. I just came back from Nevada. We were at a statewide grants conference. Some of our Native American communities were there. This is the one thing I hear all the time. There are many territories and Native American communities actually missing out on this funding because they're challenged. So one of the things that I want to point out, because I so appreciate what you're doing, but I think more needs to be done.
I think it was Chairman James in your comments. I think it was page 15. You literally talk about some of the concerns with ERE, the application process. The fact that your tribe is considered experienced in grant writing, and you have some ideas about how we can streamline it and improve this process. I would recommend please take a look at that, because I understand you provide technical assistance and training, but a lot of the tribes don't have access to that. They can't fly out for that. Unless you're bringing the training to them, they're not going to be able to access in-person training, and sometimes that helps for the grant writing process. I know there's other things that there are recommended here. To the extent that we can streamline it, tear down those barriers, and give them access, that's what I'm looking for. So if you can work with us, happy to work with you, and how you guys are addressing that, that would be wonderful.
Thank you, and yes, you have my commitment on that.
Thank you. And then I'm curious, first of all, let me just say your website's fantastic. I was just on the website looking at all the grants. You're able to pull them up. You're seeing across the country where the grants have been identified and who the recipients are. Now, is it right, though, out of the correct me if I'm wrong, 195 grant recipients are listed on your websites. They've received the grants, and this is beginning in the year 2013 to the present. Is that right? Or is it just year by year?
Okay, thank you, Senator. So you're asking about what's currently on our website?
Yes.
That would be, some of them are 3-year grants, some are 5-year. So I'd have to look back and get the exact information.
So here's my concern is if I read the website correctly, there is not zero granting going into the state of Nevada. Not one Native American community in the state of Nevada has received a grant. I don't know if that's because they haven't applied, or they were denied, or it's difficult to apply for the grant. So if you would work with my office, I would like to know what's going on. If anybody from Nevada has ever applied, and if they have, were they denied, why were they denied, or some of the challenges that are out there. I think one of the key things is making sure we're doing everything we can in Native communities across this country to make them aware of these grants. Yep. What are you doing to make sure it gets out to the communities that the grants are available?
Yep. Thank you. Excellent questions, and I appreciate that. First of all, at my request, I've asked our training technical assistance centers. We have 4, one in the East Region, West Region, Alaska, and Hawaii. And I asked them to identify, and they're in the process of doing this, all Native communities and tribes that have either never received an A grant or have not received one in several years, to reach out to them to identify why that is, and to start offering training in those areas. So it's in the process. We did identify that what you brought up as a barrier. Often there are not the resources to travel. So we're trying to get to those communities. We have offered some training. In Nevada, I have the information that we received 50 applications since 2011, 6 of which were funded, but the last grant ended in 2015. We had identified that Nevada was an area where we needed to really get out there, spread the word about ANA, get more training out there. So as a result, we held a project planning and development training in Reno in October. Wonderful. And we recently held a pre-application training in Henderson.
Okay.
So we're trying to identify those. I've asked that we identify those communities, and then we start reaching out and finding out, hey, what can we do better so that you're applying for these, or if you've applied, what can we be doing better? So it is a priority of mine.
Thank you. And as you go out, please don't hesitate to talk with our office, because we can get word out as well. We can make sure that there's a good turnout. People know about it in the state of Nevada, our tribal communities, and they're able to come out as well and participate in the training.
Fantastic.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Cortez Masto, very much for that questioning, and thank you for working with her, because I think one of the issues we do find sometimes when we have pots of money is tribes have a hard time accessing them, and if you can let us know if there's a problem there, we can try to work through with whatever issues there are. Commissioner, in November of 2018, HHS collaborated with 12 other federal agencies to produce the 4th National Climate Assessment. The report found that climate change increasingly threatens Americans' health and well-being, particularly vulnerable populations and many native populations. And the report specifically found, and now I'm quoting from it, climate change increasingly threatens indigenous communities' livelihoods, economies, health, and cultural identities by disrupting interconnected social, physical, and ecological systems. And that's the end of the quote there. In your position as Commissioner and Co-Chair of HHS's Interagency Council on Native Affairs, you're in a unique position to address this issue. What is HHS doing to respond to the public health impacts of climate change?
Thank you, Senator. I will have to follow up with you on the specifics that HHS is doing and follow up to that. I did host and Admiral Wiyaki vice-chaired our first ICNA meeting on Friday, but we are planning to have more meetings, so it'll be an item that I ask us to look into and do follow-up on. I can tell you, and as you know, under ANA we have the Environmental Regulatory Enhancement Act, which really is great for our tribes to be able to write grants so that they can, be able to write their tribal codes so that they can develop and enforce environmental codes in their communities. So,
great, thank you. On this particular area, it seems like convening an interagency council on Native Affairs meeting to discuss the public health impacts of climate change on tribes might make a real impact. So I would suggest you look into that. Chairman James, I understand that the California condor plays a central role in the Yurok tribe's traditional dances and practice of traditional Yurok religion. Can you explain how reintroducing the condor, and I'm happy too to have Tiana weigh in on this, reintroducing the condor will improve the tribe's efforts to maintain and revitalize traditional Yurok culture and Yurok language?
Thank you, Vice Chair. Condor plays a huge role in our ceremonies and our way of life, of our hard dance, for our jump dance and our deerskin dance back at home. We have been using the condor since time immemorial in our ceremonies. So it's vital and critical as we continue to move forward. We're still going to do that. To answer your question through prayer and through song, from my heart, from myself as a Yurok tribal chairman, as a traditional ceremonial leader, I'd like to sing a brief tune of what it means to us and to carry on to that message. What it is for us, it's balance. We're balancing the world, and we're using the condor that flies high above us to pack that medicine, to take it up to the Creator. And so it's great and exciting that we're here today and talking about a grand opportunity. We mentioned leveraging. You're actually leveraging it with our traditional way of life and our partners, and it's impacting. So I'd like to share a quick tune to let you know from my heart and my spirit and where I'm from. So, again, imagine our baskets, our prayers going up in ceremony, that condor flying high above, packing that medicine, taking it up to the Creator. So it's vital and critical, and I thank you. It's an honor for me to be here with myself, my staff. And again, we look forward to working with you, and not just on this project, but many more that impact not just Indian country, I wanted to share the impact that you are providing to the Yurok tribe up there in Northern California on the Klamath River. Walksa.
Thank you so much for that inspiring song. And I noticed when you were doing that Tiana's baby Morgan just really settled down. So that was very impressive there. Very impressive. Let me ask.
Done pretty good too.
Mr. Chairman, you did too.
Yeah, I know.
Let me ask Governor Vallo and Council Member Socobasin, have your tribe seen similar complementary benefits from language revitalization and economic development efforts as a result of the ANA and what you've heard here today?
Thank you, Vice Chairman Udall. Yes, most definitely. We are very happy to say that the Language Revitalization Initiative at Acoma has rooted itself in Acoma in a very significant way. So it not only has impacted and generated interest by community members and engaged them in an active revitalization initiative, but it's initiated a conversation, and it's initiated a very critical thought process internally about our inherent responsibility around language and culture and preserving that language and culture. This conversation involves all generations. So we are realizing without any real effort that this discussion around language and cultural preservation is intergenerational. And everyone is taking ownership over this issue. When you consider Acoma being in its place for over 1,000 years, and when we are singing the same songs, when we have that opportunity to celebrate our culture through our own native tongue, that says a lot for the resilience of our communities, but also this passion that we have to fulfill that inherent responsibility. And I think that we have a much stronger understanding of that in this time. And so that intergenerational engagement is happening, and it must be sustained if we are to continue to be successful at language revitalization moving forward. So yes, definite benefits. We have one Acoma woman who is now a PhD, who has dedicated her career and her scholarship to the study of indigenous languages and is the scholar on the Keres language in New Mexico. So to that end, we also see a prayer realized when our elders have always offered prayers on our behalf that we would embrace the Western language and culture and use it to benefit our responsibility or the fulfillment of our cultural responsibilities.
Thank you. Councilmember Socobasin.
Well, I came here prepared to talk about maple syrup, but we do have a language grant as well. And actually, my time as chief was when that was first awarded. So in our community, or our communities, as I mentioned earlier, we have 3,600 tribal members. And of those, about 5% are fluent in our language. We're one of the tribes of first contact. So we're one of the few tribes in the East that still has our language. And part of that being, I think we're so far north and it's so cold that all we have is us. So, but a big influence on the loss of our language was the Catholic Church. I was one of the first generations that my first language was English. My wife, who was the same age as I, her first language was Passamaquoddy. So, and our story is very similar, to what's been already said today. Our culture is connected, and our language is very important to our ceremonies. And because of the ANA grant, we've been able to implement an immersion class into our schools, and into preschool and kindergarten. And our goal is to, we have a school on the reservation that goes up into 8th grade, and I hope within the next 10 years that all their lessons are taught in Passamaquoddy. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and thank you for your courtesies, Mr. Chairman. I think we covered some good ground today, and we've realized the real benefits of this grant program, and appreciate very much the hard work of Jeannie Hovland.
Absolutely. Thank you, Vice Chairman. Thanks again to all the witnesses. If there's no more questions for today, members can also submit follow-up questions for the record. The hearing record will be open for 2 weeks. So again, thanks to all of our witnesses for being here, and Commissioner Hovland for your good work. We appreciate it so much. Thanks to all of you. We are adjourned.